In today's video, is there a maximum time you should stay in a caloric deficit? Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and you probably noticed a little change to the intro. Well, YouTube finally did it. They gave me a copyright strike for my intro music, so for now, I'm just gonna stick with this shorter intro with different music until I can get my man Chad Nutter back on the job. But today's video, well, it's about dieting, it's about fat loss, and how long we can stay in a fat loss phase successfully, and what determines that success. And I'm gonna answer the question specifically around a few different features. The first would be this: how long can you successfully stay in a fat loss phase if you're, say, a competitor who wants to lose the most body fat and keep the most muscle? Well, I typically suggest 6 months as kind of the litmus for how long you should stay in that deficit. Now, during that time, there are going to be things like refeeds and potentially diet breaks to keep a bodybuilder training hard and building muscle. But I feel like this question is more about how long could you stay in a caloric deficit if it's not necessarily physique related. And that question is a little more difficult to answer because the specifics go into the personality of the individual, the goals of the individual, and just how much body fat you have to lose. So how long can you stay in a caloric deficit when it's fat loss as a goal? Fat loss to reach your ideal body weight? Well, really the answer in that just becomes, can you last long enough to reach your ideal body weight? Actually, I'm reminded of a story of a man in 1965 who actually did not eat for 385 consecutive days. That's right. He was morbidly obese at 207 kilograms, and under medical advisement and medical treatment, he was watched for the entire year, did not eat anything. He did have some minerals and he did have water to keep him, but he basically broke down his body fat, and 385 days later, he reached his ideal body weight of 81 kilograms, losing around 125 to 126 kilograms, 275 pounds. Well, so there's your answer. It really just comes down to how long it's going to take you to reach your goal. Now, certainly I don't suggest doing anything like not eating for an entire year, but there are many ways to look at this, and I've worked with clients on many different levels who just wanted to get healthy, who wanted to compete, and what I prefer to typically do is spend 3 to 6 months in a dieting phase, then match that with 3 to 6 months spent in a maintenance phase, where we focus on basically maintaining that weight while bringing down our activity, bringing up our calories to allow for both the mental freedom of being able to eat a little bit more, not feeling restricted, but also to possibly reverse some of the adaptations, both metabolically, hormonally, that we can get from long periods spent dieting. Okay, so there's really no hard answer that anyone can give you, okay? If you start to notice that you're struggling with hunger, if you're having disordered eating, okay, if the approach that you're taking is too harsh and too drastic, well, you can expect that coming out of it is going to be just as harsh and drastic. The one thing these fad diets don't stick around, and the reason they're fads, is because they're generally not sustainable, okay? They can be a great way to kickstart like your habit changes and, understanding that calorie restriction can be positive. But essentially what you need to do to lose weight and keep it off is change your lifestyle. Most of the dieting that we do comes from habits, okay? Do you grab a snack every time you walk here? Do you overeat when you go there? Changing these habits and these patterns is something that we have to do between our ears, okay? Once you start doing that and you start looking at food and exercise in your life and all these activities differently, that's when these things become sustainable. Only when we make the adjustments to our life is fat loss forever something that we can realistically do. I'm not somebody who proposes a specific diet, a specific training, a specific cardio, a magic pill. Fat loss is just about changing what we want out of ourselves. So how long should you spend in a caloric deficit? Well, I think you can start to look for some warning signs if you've been in a caloric deficit for a long time. And sometimes that can come down to how drastic of a deficit. If you're in a 300, 500 calorie deficit, or are you trying to lose by being in a 1,000 calorie deficit? Are you on some crazy 500 calorie per day diet? Okay, I find that those type of diets are shorter in term because after a while, the benefits no longer outweigh the risks? Are you starting to have very low energy? Do you notice that your, let's say, sleep is an issue? Is stress higher? Are you food focused? Have you started to have some binge eating sessions, okay? Hair, teeth, nails, they can be affected by very low fat diets, okay? So you start to have these issues. Is your work being impacted? Is your life outside of your fat loss diet actually better because of your fat loss, or is it worse? These are all very important factors to look at, but really the answer just comes down to how long is it going to take you to reach your goal? What type of diet approach would you take? Now, I generally suggest losing 1 to 2% of your body weight per week. Now, 2% per week would be someone that's very obese, okay? This is very overweight. 1% would be someone who has just a few pounds that they want to lose to hit their ideal weight. And we might even get down to 0.5% per week if we're talking about someone who's a performance or a physique athlete and they're getting closer to that 10% body fat that's very, very lean. All right, so hopefully that answers your question, guys. And hopefully you see that really it just comes down to what are your goals and how long can you put up with the process of dieting down. But I would really, really suggest that we focus on sustainable approaches, finding ways that we can do this and enjoy it, rather than entering this with a mindset of 30, 60, or 90 days where we're going to do something very drastic that we don't sustain for a long time, that are not changes that we're willing to make for the rest of our lives, that we're not entering a diet with foods and an approach to eating that we cannot see ourselves doing forever. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me today. If you have any questions or if you're interested in flexible dieting, I have a free ebook. I'll link that below, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.